Welcome to the Speaking Your Lingo podcast, where my goal is to help this generation think well. My name is Shane Lingo, and you are listening to the second episode in a two-part Christmas series where I'm looking at the history behind some of the most influential Christmas carols of the past. Now, just a few days ago, I dropped a special Christmas episode on the carol of I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. And I enjoy getting to do that so much that I wanted to do another. And so today, I'm going to tell the story behind another fascinating Christmas carol that the majority of you listening have probably heard before, if not listened to within the past couple of days. And again, this is one of those things for me where as I learned the history behind this song, it has brought so much more meaning to the song and allowed me to appreciate it so much more. And so I'm hoping that as we do this episode today, that it's going to do the same for you. So let's jump in. Picture yourself on Christmas Eve standing in a 19th century Catholic church in France. The spacious and dim Gothic church filled with the resounding sound of the organ playing and a trained opera singer boisterously singing, "O Holy Night." This is the backdrop in which we find the origins of the famous Christmas carol, "O Holy Night." As is true of most of the famous Christmas carols of the past, the history behind this song is both unusual and fascinating. The words from the original poem that formed the basis for this beautiful carol came from the heart, the mind, and the hand of a man by the name of Placide Cappeau de Roquemaure, who was born in France in 1808. Interestingly, when Cappeau was just 8 years old, he and a friend were playing and came upon a gun that his friend's father had carelessly left lying around. As they were playing with the gun, it actually went off, and as a consequence of the accident, Cappeau lost his right hand. But even with his disability and the challenges that came with going through life with just one hand, Cappeau is going to do really well in school and eventually is going to follow his father's footsteps and going to go into the wine business, making and selling wine in his small French town. But now let's get to the song. So how did this song come about? Well, in 1847, Placide Cappeau was surprisingly asked to write a Christmas poem for the upcoming Christmas Mass by his parish priest. And I say surprisingly because he was not really known for going to church as much as he was known for his poetry. Yet even so, he was ready and willing to share his gift of poetry with the church. With little time and in a bit of a rush, Cappeau got to work. While traveling to Paris by way of carriage, he reflected on the Christmas story, guided by the words found in Luke's gospel. As he put pen to paper, he imagined what it would be like to be present almost 2,000 years ago, prior to the birth of Christ in Bethlehem. And as you're listening to this story, I want to pause for a moment, and I want to have you try to put yourself in that position. Imagine what it would have been like to actually be there in Bethlehem on that starry night when Christ was born. Now, by the time he had arrived at the capital city, the poem was finished. And now he's in Paris, and Cappeau becomes inspired that he needs to do something with this poem. He needs to turn it into a song. But the only challenge for him was that he himself was not musically inclined. But fortunately for him, his Jewish friend and leading opera composer, Adolphe Adams, was. In just a few short days, Adams was able to put the words to music, and by Christmas Eve, their mutual friend, Emily Laurie, gave the first performance during a Christmas Eve midnight mass. This was all set up in Cappeau's hometown. The song instantly became a hit, being played in many Catholic Christmas services across France. It essentially is going to take France by storm. But as time went on, eventually Cappeau, as a socialist, is going to step away from the church, and he's going to begin to disfavor the more kind of orthodox lyrics of his poem. When news got out about the lapse of faith and the fact that Adams himself was a Jew, the Catholic Church is now going to try to denounce the song, and they're actually going to ban it across France. Yet it was too late. The people had already fallen in love with the song. Now, Almost a decade later, an American writer, Harvard graduate, and Unitarian minister, John Sullivan Dwight, is going to introduce the song to America. Dwight, as an abolitionist, loved the lines, "Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease." And you can see why these lyrics would hold so much meaning for an abolitionist during this time period, right? And after Dwight beautifully translates this to English, this song is going to become a favorite amongst Northerners during the Civil War. So let's read the lyrics to the song now. "O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of the dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, O hear the angel voices, O night divine, O night when Christ was born, O night, O holy night, O night divine. Led by the light of faith serenely beaming, with glowing hearts by his cradle we stand. So led by the light of a star sweetly gleaming, here come the wise men from Orient land. The King of Kings lay thus in lowly manger, in all our trials born to be our friend. He knows our needs, to our weakness no stranger. Behold your King, before him lowly bend. Behold your King, before him lowly bend. Truly he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy and grateful chorus raise we. Let all within us praise his holy name. Christ is the Lord. Then ever, ever praise we. His power and glory evermore proclaim. His power and glory evermore proclaim. And I love the words of this song from beginning to end as I get to read them and listen to them and focus in on them. But I just want to highlight one portion, which is when it says, he knows our needs. To our weakness, no stranger. Behold your King, before him lowly bend. The reality that we find on Christmas is that the God of the Bible is not just some far-off, distant God who can't relate to the realities and the complications of the human experience, but that we have a God who knows our needs because he himself, through Christ, has lived the human experience. And so he can relate to our weakness because he lived within the same frame, within the same weaknesses. And so this allows us to relate to him as friend, and yet at the same time, our great King. Now, back to our story, because the story doesn't end here. Flash forward to Christmas Eve in 1906. And you have another interesting event that's going to make this one of the greatest Christmas carols of all time. A 33-year-old professor from Pittsburgh by the name of Reginald Fessenden, hopefully I'm pronouncing that one right, did something that had never been done before. Fessenden set up an AM radio broadcast using a new type of generator and a microphone. As Fessenden spoke into the microphone and introduced his program, it was the first time a human voice was ever broadcasted over the airwaves. Now, instead of hearing kind of these coded impulses that they were used to hearing through their small speakers, operators on ships could hear a man's voice reading the Christmas story out of the Gospel of Luke. Imagine what that would be like to, for the first time ever, hear a voice come over the radio. After his short message, he's going to pick up his violin and start playing none other than, you guessed it, "O holy night. As he played and sang along, this was the first song to ever be broadcasted via the radio. Well, as we get ready to wrap up today, I want to encourage you to go give this song a listen. I'm going to put a few of my favorite versions in the show notes like I did last week in order for you to enjoy. But go give it a listen, and as you do, reflect on the history and the meaning of the words throughout the song. Until next time, Merry Christmas, and I'll see you on